right, so I'll call to order the meeting of the Service Committee of the Comment, and we'll start with the determination of a quorum. If you can call the roll, please.
Mr. Brennan,
Present.
Mr. Burgess, Ms. Gleaton, Ms.
Present.
Herbert, Ms. Mood.
Present.
I'll call advisory members, Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Kuhn, Mayor Robinson, and you have a quorum.
Okay, and so our next item is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
All right, I have a motion and a second. You call the roll.
All right,
Yes.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess, Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert, Ms. Mood,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
All right, so that takes us to item 3 in the report from the Midlands Transit Association. Mr. Durst is with us.
Yes, I'm sorry I'm not with you in person today, but I'm getting over a cold, and I definitely didn't want to share that with y'all. 13 years ago, the MTRA began its work to make the buses better for the riders. We've gotten a lot of things done with the cooperation of the Comet and its board of directors. The list is long and very good. Lately, pointing out about the open windows on the buses. The MTRA will continue to advocate for better service, such as we are vehemently opposed to the phases changes with disrupting the riders' abilities to get to work, school, churches, doctor's appointments, etc. But it is necessary for me to step back from my duties as spokesman at Comet meetings. I've made some friendships that will last forever. I'm deeply grateful for the support I have received from the board and staff. I trust that the person who replaces me will get the same support that I have gotten. I'll still work with the MTRA in a more behind-the-scenes effort, and I may make an appearance or two at a Comet meeting if I feel it's necessary. But again, thank you for allowing us to make a difference for the riders.
Well, we thank you and for your participation and contribution over all of these years. And I know that you all are in the process of identifying someone to be the face and the presence with us. And I would just say that I believe it's invaluable that we keep this two-way communication going between our riders. And I know that the Transit Riders Association has really transitioned from trying to get together people for in-person meetings to working through the internet and the social media. But that's a very accessible way for people to get their feedback to you and for you to help us, as you have been doing, getting out information from the Comet to the riders. So I just think that's invaluable, and I hope that you all will sustain that effort.
Me too.
We'll certainly sustain our welcome of your participation with us.
Thank you.
Ms.
Anybody
Mood,
else
I
have something to say?
on that? Yeah, Ms. Mood. This
Yes,
Carolyn.
Ms. B.
Okay, I have a comment on about he talking about the windows on the buses, and what I have noticed when I get on the buses, basically coming from doctor's appointments and things like that, time the people get on the buses they can have the air conditioning on, nice and comfortable. Doggone it, if they don't open every one of them windows wide open again.
All right, well, Ms. Gleaton, we actually listed that as a discussion item on down on 5C. So would you hold on to that, and so we can make that a part of the full discussion of that item on the agenda?
I sure will, darling. Thank
Great.
you so much.
Okay, stand by. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else from the Midlands Transit Riders or for them?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll move to adoption of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the minutes from the last meeting.
And we have a second from Mr. Brennan. Any discussion? We'll call the roll.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess, Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert, Ms. Mood,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. So now we're on 5A, which is a report from the Passenger Amenities Program. Mr. McGee with us? Yes, there he is. Go ahead, Zach.
Yes, good afternoon. In the past month or two, I think it's been 2 months since I've been able to make one of these meetings. AOS has completed a stop at a shelter at stop number 838, as well as they've replaced 2 shelters which were damaged due to car accidents. In addition, we have been coordinating with the South Carolina Department of Administration at the Midlands Tech stop that we're trying to add a shelter at. And the rest of my report is there. If there's any questions on that.
All right, so we do have the written report also. Does anyone have questions or comments for Mr. McGee? If not, we thank you for that ongoing work and for your report. All right.
Thank you.
Now, the next item on the agenda is from Mr. Pearl to talk to us about the status of the trolley fleet.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the discussion today revolves around our trolleys that we currently have in the Comet's possession. The Comet received trolleys 1916 and 1917 from Lansing, Michigan in early 2020. Upon receiving the trolleys, the Comet invested
And we're
heavily.
talking 2016 and 17.
19, their numbers.
Oh.
The number of, that's the number of the trolley.
Okay.
1917.
Okay, right.
Yes, but we did receive them in 2020, but those are vehicle numbers.
Gotcha.
So we did some research and with staff and the Comet started to heavily invest in the trolleys to get them roadworthy. As of today, the Comet has spent $62,472 on repairs, and the total mileage since we received them on both of the trolleys is 16,812 miles. Financially, it equates to $3.72 per mile, and that is not inclusive of the fuel costs. The current general condition of the trolleys does not allow for them to be put into service, so they continue to remain out of service.
And when you talk about general condition, that's like,
Working order, are they roadworthy? And they are not roadworthy at this time. Some of the major issues with the trolleys include rusted frames that are beyond repair, cracked windows due to rusted out window frames, exterior wood on the trolleys, which needs to be either reconditioned or replaced, and significant exhaust leaks. The Federal Transit Administration, from their perspective, does not have any financial interest in the trolleys, and they are beyond their useful life. Currently, the trolleys are calculated in our total fleet count, which does affect our spare ratio numbers. Based on the significant cost to repair the trolleys back to a minimum working condition, their limited use on our routes, and the continuous mechanical issues that we've been experiencing with them, the recommendation from staff is to the service committee is to retire trolleys number 1916 and 1917 and send them to auction.
okay. Anyone have questions for Mr. Pearl?
Miss Mood,
Yes.
from what I've seen on those trolleys, you don't see a whole lot of people on them riding them. Is it worth to spend that kind of money to keep running them?
I think that's exactly the point that Mr. Pearl is making, is that the investment so far has not had a payoff and is not enough to make them a workable part of the fleet. And nor would we want to invest more with the kind of structural problems that I think we're hearing from him. You know, it was you know, the kind of a harming thought in terms of the way trolleys are thought about, just the nostalgia of that, and
Yes.
that might be a good part of our downtown circulator kind of service. But I think when I think about the comfort of passengers, the access to Wi-Fi, I mean, all of the things that we've done on the buses to try to make a really an outdated kind of vehicle. That does, I mean, your recommendation makes a lot of sense to me, but I'd like to hear from other people on the committee. Bill, do you have anything to say?
Support the public auction.
Okay. So I think that the role that we would play as the service committee is to make a motion for what our recommendation from the service committee would be to the board. Go ahead.
Do you want that at motion time or do you want that now?
I want it now.
Okay, I make a motion to follow the recommendation by Director Pearl.
I second it. Mm-hmm.
All right, so the motion is that we follow the recommendation from Mr. Pearl and staff to retire the trolleys and send them for auction. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second to the motion? Oh, you did second it.
Ms. Mood.
All right,
Mhm.
all right. So ready for a vote? on
Call
that
the
motion?
roll. Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess. Ms. Gleaton.
Yes.
Ms. Herbert. Ms. Mood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right, so I will make that motion at the upcoming board meeting. All right, thank you. Thank you. And the next item is 5C, the safety operator conduct and bus windows follow up. And this and I really want us to, as a service committee, to make it as a regular thing that we do on our agenda, is that when we have concerns brought to us by the public or by the Midlands Transit riders, that we have some way of just following up on what has happened to those things that we hear from them on, so that we don't, I mean, that it's not up to the service committee to take the action, but I just want us to be informed of what transpires after we hear concerns hear from the staff on where we are with following those up, what we've learned. So this is really just, I would like for that to just be an ongoing thing when we hear from the public, to make that one of our agenda items. So who wants to take the lead on telling us what's happened with that complaint?
And I will say, once we heard that complaint, and I'll let Mr. Cooksey take over here. But once we heard the complaint, staff reacted very quickly from the comment and from RATP. And those issues have been addressed accordingly. And Mr. Cooksey, if you would like to go into more detail.
So just to kind of follow up on that, we took another look at the windows and the style of window, or what could be the remedy for that. And as of today, I can report that all of the revenue vehicle windows have been affixed shut.
Now they're fixed shut, so they can't.
They cannot be open.
Which, Ms. Gleaton, you hear that, because that's really getting at
Thank you.
Yes, so.
Thank you.
You know, the maintenance team did a great job at looking at what we could use in order to make that happen. Unfortunately, I have a small picture here, but I can share something out on what that would look like. But we were able to get that where those windows cannot be open now. And I mean, it looks professional, it's well done. There's a particular bracket or piece that was installed on that portion that folded open and closed. So you're just unable at this point to open that. So as of today, all the vehicles that are in revenue service, those windows have been affixed where you cannot open.
Well, I
Thank you.
appreciate that prompt kind of follow-up. Does anyone have questions or comments for Mr. Cooksey or Mr. Pearl?
Thank you, Ms. Mood. Thank you.
And I'm glad for that to be a part of their record now about, in the minutes that would people can see what the follow-up was on
And
it.
if I can add, I did take a look at that because, a lot of times you'll hear a complaint and sometimes you think, well, is this widespread, or what is what are we looking at?
How much of this are we?
How much of this are we talking about? So I was just out of curiosity, I went through the system for 2023 and pulled out the number of complaints related to the window. I gather there may be more. Some people don't call in, they just accept it, or you got some that do. So we did, for the year, we had 1.6 million trips, passenger trips, just to kind of put our arms around it. And what we were able to track down were 7 complaints
7.
related to the window that actually came through the system, that were reviewed and looked at and taken care of. So I just wanted to kind of give just an overall scope of what we're looking at when we say window. Yes, it was an issue. One complaint is too many, right? That's why we capture everything. But if we look at the big picture number of how many we were dealing with, I think
It
gives us a
just
different
wasn't something
perspective.
that would have risen to the surface of our attention just by the number of
No,
complaints.
not based on that number. If you look, because it doesn't even register when you run the percentages. It's something that wouldn't have, and
Right.
it just looking purely at data, right? Of course,
That really reinforces for me the power of having people come and speak to us, because that does let us know something, that
sure.
what we know is that those 7 people who complained represent a lot of people who don't complain.
Right.
Yeah, so.
And Mr. Mack and I, we conducted a facility review, and while part of our review was to go downtown to Comet Central, and while we were down there, we jumped on a couple of buses and actually got to see the mechanisms and how they're working or how they're not working. So it just solidified the issues or the complaints that we're having, and it was addressed very, very quickly. So we got to see firsthand what was really going on with the windows.
Well, that's very reassuring to me, and I'm sure to the rest of the community. Is
Thank
any
you.
other comments or questions?
Thank you so
I'll
much.
hear your thanks, Ms. Bleaton. Good. All right, well, then that takes us to 5B, the Lucius and River Super Stop update, and I'll let you all decide who wants to take the lead on that.
I will go ahead and begin the conversation on the Super Stop update. Last conversation that we had, I was in the process of reviewing the quote that we have for the water seepage issue, and that is still a work in progress. And any further updates that I have, I will make sure to bring them to the service committee.
Okay. Any questions on that? All right, so no resolution now, but still work in progress. All right, then we'll move on to 5E, the transit operations report.
Yes, again, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and dive right in. Reference to we'll start with our COVID-19 flu update. Currently, at least when I pulled this, kind of looking at this in Richland and Lexington County, our COVID-19 hospital admissions are low. We still have several operators and workforce have that issue, but not rising to the level of needing to be hospitalized. We are above the baseline in the state for the influenza, however. I think last check, we're probably a little over 7%, above the baseline 3.2. So we know that was still out there and still prevalent, which impacts us, just all around. Now, I did read something recently where CDC is looking at easing our COVID-19 isolation guidance this spring. So, so people no longer need to isolate once they have been fever-free for 24 hours and their symptoms are mild or improving. And that's kind of what we're looking at this spring. So we'll monitor that and see when specifically.
So that's the guidance that you all use in terms of when the operators can return to work.
Yeah, we'll follow the recommendations, CDC and FTA on that particular issue. Now we do have, I know Mr. Mack, his team, they have, as far as operators, we do have masks available at the dispatch window. So I know that was something that it came up. So those are optional. They have those available, and we have those to give out, to the workforce as well. And we'll continue to do that, indefinitely. It looks at this point, so. Yeah.
Well, and what we've learned is that even though people may not have COVID or full-blown flu, when you have respiratory problems,
Right.
Just having access to masks is a helpful thing, because none of us won't have any of those other maybe more mild but problematic illnesses. Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Yes, as far as looking
Food,
at
I agree with you on that, because I still wear my mask everywhere I go. I tell them right quick, I'm up in age and I'm gonna take care of myself. I've had all my shots and stuff, but I still wear my
You're being a
mask.
good example for the rest of the riders, and that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jumping over to our customer service, we did have a decrease in overall complaints compared to December of '23. One of the things that it's always great to see because it fluctuates from month to month is, our safety in reference to our reliability category, we saw some improvements there. A pretty good jump from 49 to 26. We noticed our safety category did creep up some, so.
What shows up in those complaints? What kinds of things are you?
As far as our safety, sometimes it could be a situation, someone may call in, an operator, they may maybe hit the brakes too hard or cut someone off inadvertently. Those are some of the things that pop up in those particular categories. It's more of the maybe how the operator is handling the bus per se, as opposed to any other type of safety. Yeah, I mean, we can even dig in deeper, but those generally are the ones.
That was what I was interested in.
Yeah, they come to that, and it's also spread across the system. It's not isolated to one particular area. But when you see these complaints, I think we looked at that previously, looking at where things are.
They're concentrated.
Right, they're concentrated, kind of turn our tables in that area. I mean, overall, it was a pretty good month in reference to customer service complaints. Now, we capture everything that comes in. There's also valid versus invalid, which, at times I do show that. But here, everything, if a person calls in, we need to capture it and investigate it, look into it. So that's what our number looks like for that. Taking a look at our maintenance. So we exceeded our target after missing it in December. And that was great because we had some really cold days in January, if you remember. So kudos to the maintenance team and everybody kind of getting through those cold months and exceeding our road call target miles. Good job for them. I think the target is 12,000 and we ended up at 12,317. So again, kudos to them for those cold days. Taking a look at our on-time performance, we did have a run cut that took place January the 21st. So we had a lot of new drivers on new routes, and we have a lot of new drivers in general, and we did see an improvement over the previous month. The jury, I call it, still out on the overall changes or adjustments that were made. We had about 10 days of looking at the changes that were made and the impact. And we did see some improvement there. What I did this time, and then of course, and I'll jump back to fixed route, paratransit did have an improvement over the previous month. But what I did was I called a couple of different agencies and people I know across the country, and I have more data coming in to kind of do an OTP comparison, like in the Southeast, and kind of just what are people doing, what's important to them, right? And the OTP comparison list, I talked to Asheville. They generally run a lot lower in the summer because, tourist town, it's tough for them to move with traffic issues. We took a look at Greensboro, Memphis, Savannah, and ourselves. And you can kind of see where we're sitting amongst those different systems. So what I'll do, I have more data coming in. I'll add it to this so we can kind of compare ourselves to our peers. What's important, and size-wise, different traffic patterns. I know those type of things all play a factor. And one of the questions I asked them is, well, what's important? What's important to you related to this? So, because we know what's important to us. And so we're hoping to be able to add more information to this study as we look at how we continue to work through our OTP process.
Well, I found that comparison very helpful, both in terms of where people set the targets, you know, what's considered as unacceptable performance level, all the way from 95% down to 72% in terms of even targets.
Right.
And then the fact that we are kind of in the middle of that and doing just slightly better in terms of actual performance across the board, no matter what the target was. So, we're not ready to rest on our laurels, but I think that's very helpful to me to see that bigger picture.
And I hope to be able to provide Charleston and Greenville as well. I did reach out to them, and I tell you what, this is hard information to find. You know, a lot of places, it's not up in front and center when you go to their website or you talk to people. You got to dig through to get this and the parameters of how people are measuring their on-time performance. Because everybody measures it a little bit differently, but we're all of our systems that I put on here, we're all pretty much in the same ballpark. So it's like apples to apples.
Right.
So I'm going to continue to do that as we continue to work on ours, but also looking at what are our peers doing?
Okay.
You know, and so we can continue to work to outpace them to be better in this area. So I just wanted to show that so you guys can see what that looks like.
Thank you. You're doing a good job at that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. As far as our ridership summary, it looks like in January of 24 versus 23, we have a 7.48% decrease. We did fare better in January of 24 versus last month, well, December now, month before last. We saw a 2.64% increase. So again, a little better than December. We know December had days of people, you know, the university was closed. It was also closed some in January as well. Not quite an even swap, but it's good. Anytime we see an increase, I always think that's a positive. You know, the question will circle back to us at some point to have the discussions of, and this came up when I was calling some of these other agencies about OTP and what was important to them, is really looking at, will we ever get back those riders pre-2020? And now it's 2024 with all of the different options there are out there, all the different services that are provided and the rideshare services, people still working potentially less hours or in just different ways working from home. Is that feasible to get back to that number? Is that what we said is, well, we got to get back to that number? Or is it now we look at, you know, of the service we do have, how do we build that to make that better, more efficient of what we do have, and then look at the different services that can be added into that for the future and build out the system differently. So those are some of the conversations I was having with the other agencies when we were talking about OTP. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, and I think too, that's where Pam and her efforts to say, how do we get riders from other parts of the population that may not have been in those pre-2020 numbers, but how can we make public transit buses more appealing to a broader range of people within the population? So, okay. Any other comments or questions on the ridership?
I don't have anything additional on ridership. I do.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, my question is, do y'all have a bus running down there by the baseball field off of Pickens Street? It used to be a bus running down there. I can't remember which one it was then.
I'm looking at Jackie and Mr. Cook to see.
Soda Cap 3.
I think that's the only soda cap.
Soda Cap 3.
Oh, Soda Cap?
Are you talking about the baseball stadium on Bull Street and the Bull Street, or down by the
No,
university?
ma'am. Down by the
Founders
university
Field.
off of Pickens Street.
Oh. Oh, the closest route, Miss Gleaton, would be Route 61.
61. So you would get off there on 61 over there and walk back over? Is that, I'm just trying to picturize it.
How about the university buses? Do they do that?
The university buses go over on Whaley. So that would be actually closer for the university buses. But 61 goes down Assembly Street towards the fairground.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Okay, because I see they finna start softball and all of that stuff over there in baseball, and that's why I was asking the question. Because somebody asked me the other day, and I told them, I said, well, I said, they in the past have had a bus running down, and I know you could catch 61 and get off down there close to that railroad track and walk over. You know what I'm saying?
And,
Yes.
and that's why I was asking about the university buses, because that's another chance to educate people to the fact
Right.
that they have access to the
Right.
university buses,
Mhm.
just like they do the rest of the buses.
Right.
Okay. So does that university bus come downtown, or how close does it come down there?
Yes.
You-
I'll send you that schedule, Ms. Clayton.
So that
thank
they
you,
can
darling.
connect, where they can connect with those
Mhm.
buses. All right,
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Brown?
Okay, what service are we providing to Sumter currently? Do we run a bus to Sumter?
Mhm.
We stopped one, we
We were running it twice in the AM and twice in the PM. So now it's one time in the morning and one in the evening.
Okay, and it goes all the way down to downtown Sumter?
Yes,
Does it stop at that park and ride on 378?
yes.
Are we in charge of maintaining that park and ride?
We just maintain the bus stop area.
Okay, so who's in charge of like the litter and everything, and the security of that park and ride?
That would be that community. I don't know. I could find out who's in charge of it, but our crew just clean the bus stop and empty the trash can.
Yeah, just a small portion.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I do have some concerns with the litter in there. And then you can tell cars get broken into a lot in there because there's glass everywhere.
Mhm.
I would just, let the local managers know that.
Okay,
so DOT doesn't have any relationship to that parking lot?
they may, I'm not sure. They may maintain the grounds, but I could check into it.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for raising that question. Okay. All right, Mr. Cooksey, back to you.
Yes. As far as our DART, I mean, their overall cancellation rate, January 1st to December was down. They did experience a higher number of cancel at the door and late cancellations. Again, their on-time performance was up over the previous month. Dennis, did you have anything you wanted to add? Reference to DART?
Our average cancellation rate, when you see it on this report, that's for all cancellations. So a lot of the cancellations we like to really address are your cancel at the doors, no shows, and late cancels. And we've been averaging right now between 6% and 8% per month. And previously, probably about 2 years ago, we were about 18 to 20%. So we've really significantly decreased the cancellation rate by a lot of education. We have a new process in place where people get notification if they have excessive cancels, they get letters, and then eventually, if they keep violating the policy or program, they can be suspended, but that gets put to the comment. If we have a recommendation for suspension, we recommend it to the comment, and then they make the determination, and then a letter will go out to them. But since all this and everything, we've really drastically reduced those cancellations down, so.
That's good.
I have a question on here. It has 246 for user error. What's the user error?
So user error is gonna be things like when we book a trip in the trapeze, when you go to look for a solution. If the passenger doesn't like the solution that's being provided to them, it automatically saves into trapeze. So if they want to cancel that trip, we have to cancel it as user error because the trip wasn't actually a required trip to be put in the system. So every trip that we look for, the way our trapeze system works is you pull up the booking and you have to save it. And if they decide they don't want that trip or anything, there's a conflict or something like that, then we have to go in immediately and cancel that trip out. But we don't want to do it as a cancel in advance. We don't want to do it as a cancel same day because that will go against the passenger. So we put it as user error so that there's no, penalty to the passenger because they weren't able to, or they didn't want that trip of that day.
I'm not sure I got all of that, but that makes sense. Good, good, okay. All right. Anything else on Dart? Move on.
All right, and jumping in to our safety, one of the things, or a couple of things that we focused on in the month of January is your training, distractions, being distracted driving rather, wheelchair securement, and approaching intersections. I can tell you, but we had 2 preventable accidents for the month of January, and a little higher number than non-preventable. Than what I'm seeing, just in looking at the videos and kind of looking back at the stuff, is that people are just not paying attention. Just saying what it is. You have the public running stop signs or traffic lights, not yielding to the bus. It just seems like a lot of people are just distracted, and you see it, it just seemed like January for some reason that seemed to be higher than normal. Because sometimes you wonder, well, how could someone run into the back of the bus that's sitting still? Sometimes either a phone or you're fumbling with something or whatever the case might be. So I have seen a lot more of that. Again, we're focused on, at least for that month, on just distractions and entering intersections. We had an accident that took place at an intersection. A car just completely blatantly ran a traffic light right in front of the bus. The operator was traveling 7 miles below the speed limit. Really, there was no reaction time. There was nothing he could do other than brake and just anticipate impact, right? But then when you look at the video and you freeze frame it right at the time of the impact, the person didn't see anything. They're just, it's almost like they didn't see the traffic signal that was there, red.
They weren't reacting.
They weren't reacting. So just seeing a lot more of that. Hopefully that's an anomaly for the month of January. We don't see that throughout the year.
Well, what about the injuries? I'm always concerned about that.
Yeah, we had some. Looking at the majority of these injuries that appeared to take place were on that one accident. You didn't see, there was maybe one person that looked like they were jostled around a bit. Most everyone else stayed in place. So you visibly looking at it, you didn't see that there were any major injuries there. We did have a person on board who was in a wheelchair, and we had just done the wheelchair securement training. And I was very impressed with the operator. In fact, we'll talk about him here shortly, because he did everything correct in making sure that wheelchair was secured. And so when he made the impact, the chair did not move an inch. Person was seated, belted, and very secure. So we're going to actually use that in our training for next month to show the other operators, this is how you properly secure a mobility device. And because anything can happen.
You can't anticipate.
In anticipation. So no feedback, or we haven't received anything back of any serious injuries, but they were all from that one accident. People, requested medical attention. So, obviously we follow through with that. Mary, I think I had introduced her like a year or so ago. It's doing a fine job of with our training program and our safety program. So we give that a lot of attention, not just here, but that's across all our ATP dev properties. It's a heightened sense for safety for our passengers and operators and so forth. So we'll continue our foot on the gas. Yes.
I have a little bit of feedback on that. Y'all have done a real good job. I have noticed those drivers, when those people get on with those wheelchairs, they make sure that they lock those things, whatever they lock on the side of them,
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
and to make sure that those seats and things are correctly, because you have some good drivers out there, yeah, and they really do check that stuff, and I really have appreciated that, because a lot of time I'm on there and I've seen them come on, and I've noticed that driver going to come back there and make sure that those things are locked, so she go back up to her seat. So I can pat you on the back on that, because I be watching it.
Well, thank you for watching. If you see something wrong, let us know.
Oh, I will,
Definitely.
so we can be ahead of it. I will, yeah. Mm-hmm,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you so much. Jumping
welcome.
over to our HR and staffing. So we are we're working on a job fair for the 29th for bus operators. Our pipeline isn't as strong as I'd like it to be. And, you know, there's some things that are always challenging with recruiting. And we have recruiting calls with RATP Dev weekly and with everyone throughout the Southeast. So you can kind of hear what other people are doing and what's going on. And we know even with all of the efforts, it's still a challenge across the country on hiring. And you have, you know, your demographics. So you have many approaching retirement age. We have several, a couple of operators that are at 40+ years of driving. So you always have to look at the retirement age, the competition. You know, everybody upped the ante in 23. So you saw that across the country, in all industries. You saw numerous strikes and things like going on. So it's very competitive for that person that has that clean driving record or able to work through the different working conditions. You know, a bus operator you can get in difficult situations. In fact, the Biden-Harris administration is calling for transit agencies around the nation to take further action to protect bus operators and frontline employees because of the uptick in assaults on doing that job. You know, here at the Comet, we have the protective barriers as one line of defense. We also do de-escalation training annually.
Good.
We do a good job on kudos to Jackie on working through on trespassing those individuals, you know, following through. I think is really important. You know, a lot of your assaults take place at the fare box. That tends to be where a majority of the issues happen, right? So, you know, we know where that happens in many cases. So, and that's just about taking fare. Anytime you're exchanging money, that's really what that's about. Or card or your swipe, there's issues, things of that nature. So, and we're doing what we can on our end, but the uptick, we don't have as much of an issue here in Columbia at this time, but it is risen to the extent that there's a call for action in that area. So we're very conscious of that and you know how we deal with things. But as far as the job fair, you know, one of the things we're looking at doing and talking with Courtney, our HR manager, is trying to partner with our different education institutions, because there's probably an opportunity at the colleges here of individuals that would qualify, that are old enough, 21, that are able to work part-time and help fill the void in some areas. So it gives them a year or two. They could be a grad student, they could be maybe in, you know, sophomore, senior, junior year, or junior year, sophomore, senior year. And so that's what we're going to, because we'd have to tailor and readjust our training to fit in the part-time type status, because we're not set up that way. But that is one of our goals this year, and we've been able to meet everything we put in front of us, is to kind of tap into that. Our collective bargaining agreement does give us a limit of how many we can hire, but we definitely want to partner with the community and those that are available. So if you know of any college students or that are willing or interested in, you know, we're open. You know, we have our job fair on the 29th, and again, Courtney will be reaching out to those career centers and career advisors and working through that situation. So to bring in a few more.
Let me ask a question?
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to continue to strengthen, all the other stakeholders in the workforce development realm in the Midlands for our purposes. Have you, I would encourage you to reach out to the COG and their Midlands Workforce Development Board. They have a wonderful outreach to get the word out specifically for this. Tammy at Midlands Workforce, but you can go through, I think Reginald, transportation planner at the COG. I would work through him to get that contact. And then also I would encourage our HR team to reach out to the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. They are always looking, and they are putting together a good, strong network for employers looking for quality employees.
Absolutely.
So I don't have a contact at Veterans Affairs anymore. The director changed. I think they have a good website you can reach out to
Okay.
and do that. So,
Absolutely. I think Courtney, our HR person's on, so we were talking about that.
good. And I don't want to go steal bus drivers from the school districts, but we talk about part-time.
Yeah.
That might be a good option for part-time employment through our local districts, since there's a lot of bus drivers out there.
Well, they still are.
Yeah. But our creative, innovative approach of part-time, I think if
Particularly
those
the
folks,
plumbers coming up.
if those folks knew that there's a part-time opportunity, they might be more willing. So I would encourage you to reach out to them as well.
Yes, sir. Definitely gonna venture down that way.
Good suggestions.
I also want to recognize Mr. James Toe. Mr. Toe, unfortunately, is a Washington Commanders football fan, but he hadn't had much to cheer about, I think, over the years. But nevertheless, he's a good man. He's been a 10-year driver. He has 6 kids. He's very active in his church. He's married. So again, we would like to congratulate him. Model employee, does a fantastic job. Comes in to work every day with a smile on his face. All right. So that's always nice when you have that. So as far as our performance for the month, I think it was a good month overall in all of our different areas. So I'm open for any additional questions.
Any other questions for Mr. Cookson? Okay, thank you for that. All right, then what the ridership report, I want to hear from Eric on what we have, as you can tell from the reports in the packet, is that we have the latest month overall ridership that we get from RAPDEV. Then there's some things that have to be examined to be sure that this data meets all the requirements to be reported to the feds. So we kind of have a lag in terms of looking at the detailed route analysis. And so we don't, so that's why we're looking on this. We have October and November. I'm looking at October and November, and here we are in February. So it's a little bit frustrating, but I think that I don't know any way to eliminate that lag and getting detail. So Eric, if you just tell us if there are things that stand out to you in this October and November data on the route analysis.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to the members of the committee. And piggyback on some of what Lenny was discussing, we have done a deep-rooted comparison, but using weekday ridership as a baseline, comparing August, September, October, and November, like a 4-month span to 2020 ridership. Going back to that pandemic year, we're only down by 2%. Which is a good sign, but just through a quick glance, removing USC ridership, it seems that our month-to-month trends further coincide with unemployment rates. I thought that was pretty interesting as I was kind of playing around with data. It's not a huge impact, but this is something that plays a role. The biggest questions are, where are the job hubs, and compare the areas where there is an employment reduction. And so that's like a deeper dive that I plan to also do with the data, and just to see if we can identify, see if there's any correlation with the specific routes that may see a slight decrease in ridership. But with that being said, Route 76 Fort Jackson is performing well. Over the last 4 months, we've seen an uptick in ridership. August 13th, September 24th, October 9th. October August, it was 13%. September, it was 24%. October, it was 9%. In November, it was actually 36%. But bearing that in mind, the route serves the majority employment areas along Forest Drive, Fort Jackson, Walmart, Sam's, et cetera. But comparing apples to apples, just for analysis purposes, for comparison, Harbison routes 801 and 83L, they're doing well as well. But if anything, we are doing well across the board. We are slowly seeing ridership level out from the USC rush, so that big uptick at the start of the school year. And as Lenny mentioned, for the January month, it did slow down just a bit. And as I kind of collect that data and move that in, next month we'll see 2 ridership reports. We'll see January and February, and we'll be able to utilize that information to kind of cross-analyze where we are, seeing how we're growing from month to month. But yeah, so again, we're down 3% in weekday ridership from last month. Overall, but again, from 2020, it says that the data supports that we're only down by 2%. So it does seem as if that we are trying to move in the right direction. It's been a very hard pull to get ridership back to where it needs to be, and to not to necessarily say what the answer is to Lenny's question about at what point do we not, or do we continue to compare to pandemic numbers. But I do know for sure that it serves as a good floor baseline for ridership. So we want to always try to do everything we can to exceed that number and keep that as a threshold for ourselves. But that's all for me.
Are there any routes that you keep in your eye on that look like they may be particularly problematic or questionable in terms of the current configuration?
In this case, no. Oddly to say, but no. At this time, for the last 4 months, up to this point, with the data that's been received, we don't have any actually. There are slight increases, but I mean, like maybe 1 or 2, 3%. But that's a give or take, and that's to be expected. But we don't have anything that's alarming right now. It seems to be pretty steady.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Eric?
I do. I want to add something on to that. I really do appreciate y'all running 2 701s going out Forest Drive, because that bus used to be overcrowded quite a bit. But it has really helped with the 2 buses running out there. And especially in the mornings, I guess getting people to work and picking them back up. But because I ride 701 a lot going out Forest Drive, and I got to go out there to my beauty shop out there. I like to catch the bus.
Okay.
But anyway, I appreciate that. Yeah. And the people appreciate going out to Walmart too, because a lot of people go out to Walmart, do their shopping, and it has really helped them. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to piggyback on that and let you know. Okay?
Right.
Yeah, thank you
so much. All right, so that takes us to the 5G, and really I just asked to put this on just to give you all an update on activities that maybe we don't talk about in board meetings and stuff, and particularly at this point in time with Mr. Pearl coming on and being relatively new to us. The way that Lexington County funds its transportation, it funds its public transit, is through a transportation working group that's a subgroup of the Lexington County Council and the jurisdictions within Lexington who have bus service. And they have reactivated that because that's the planning body that then develops the budget and assures that process meets all the requirements. But and where initiatives for new service have to be brought to that group, and then when the jurisdictions pay the share that they've agreed to pay, they pay it to Lexington County, and Lexington County handles it. So we only deal with Lexington. We, the Comet, only deal with Lexington County, but they have this participation with some of their jurisdictions. So the 2 things that one is that the most recent meeting of that committee, of that transportation working group, Mr. Pearl and the staff were there for them to get to know and to have discussions. And I thought that was very productive because it helped us identify some of the dyssynchrony in the budgeting process so that we, and they're gonna be working closely together so that we aren't caught in the position of giving them sort of provisional numbers of a budget. And then when our process gave us more specific numbers, we had to go back to change. And in the meanwhile, they'd had to present to council. So it just created a lot of confusion about why are we getting two different sets of requests, for the same budget year. So anyway, I'm happy that's one update that I think is going to be good. The other thing is that we talked about the fact that when jurisdictions, we've had certain jurisdictions, Batesburg, Leesburg, Will is one, that made appeals directly to the Comet to help them develop service. And so how do you fit that in the kind of organizational structure that we have in Lexington County to work with? I think we came to agreement that when an entity, a jurisdiction within Lexington County sees a need for service, wants to develop something, that the Comet staff is available as an available resource to them to help them think through that process and just look at what the options are that might meet the needs they're describing and help them with what would that cost. But then it really is the jurisdiction's responsibility to take up whatever plan they come up with and want to do as a request through the Lexington County process. So we are not dealing directly with requests for them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, but I think it's important to the service committee because that does, because we have been confronted with, how do you do new service development in an area? And I just wanted people
Do we need to
to.
formalize some sort of working agreement that puts that in writing that says we're here as a resource for you, Lexington County? If you point us in the right direction, we'll give our recommendations.
Well, I think the staff's participation with the working group, that's, I guess that would be recorded in the proceedings of that more than a separate kind of working agreement. Which
Or
you're
an
talking
advisory
about
role.
if we get a request to help them
Right.
with the development of.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
run it through the top, through the county, to say, if the county has to say, yeah, go talk to Batesburg, Leesville, you're as an advisor, put the numbers together.
That's a good question, because I was thinking that I hadn't envisioned it as that kind of top-down process as much as there being, when people say we need something, they don't even know how to go about that. And we're just as a resource to them. What's your thinking about that, Mr. Pearl? Do you think we need does the staff really need more of a formal process
Because the funding mechanism is going to be the county.
that they're the ones ultimately
Right,
accountable
so-
for, but we wouldn't, and so clearly, any proposal that the local jurisdiction wants, they take it to Lexington County, and Lexington County has to okay that before it
Right.
comes to us as a formal request for a change in service.
Well, and I think every municipality has representation on Lexington County Council.
Yes,
So I think the top-down approach would probably be the best way, us as an advisor to Lexington County to be assigned to local municipalities for service. Because then we give them hard numbers, like we're not just pulling them out of the sky. These are well thought out. This is what it's going to cost for this service to Batesburg, Leesville, for example.
so let me be sure I'm understanding, Will, that you think that when a jurisdiction in Lexington, what we would like is that before they come to ask us for any kind of assistance in just thinking through what kinds of needs they have and how we might meet them, that they can get an okay from Lexington County to pursue that with us?
Well,
What I don't want to
Yeah.
do is to put unnecessary roadblocks.
right, I don't see somebody like a municipality the size of Batesburg, Leesville coming out of their general fund to provide transportation funding for a route.
Mhm.
I think it all starts at the top through the county funding. And so I think you got to start there to get some real, to get everybody on board from the onset, to know that we're not just spinning our wheels here on.
And do you think that, I guess what I'm asking is, does that just require making sure they're in the communication loop rather than kind of here's what I'm thinking about. if you take something to Lexington County Council for one jurisdiction, for the whole council to say, we approve, you know, to have to get the whole council's approval to just do
Well, let me ask you something.
developmental work.
What is this working, this Lexington County Transportation Work Group? Who, are there elected officials on there? Are there decision makers on there?
Yes, they are,
Okay.
yeah, the representation from the jurisdiction are usually the administrators, the town administrators.
Right, so if we can get the okay, maybe to run it through there, I don't wanna, I don't want us to spin our wheels with staff time
Yes, yes.
when the funding, the ultimate funding mechanism is a long shot.
Well, I think that might be a much more workable way to get it. Your concern is that as a part of the transportation working group agenda, that people who are interested in exploring new service would bring that
Right.
desire to that.
Is that a
group.
voting, is that a
makes
voting
better
body?
sense to me. Yes.
Is it an actual voting body? The working group? I mean, do y'all make recommendations? Do you vote on recommendations to take to the county, to the cities, whoever the participants are?
Yeah, that's a decision-making group.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, and we have county council representation
Good,
on that
yeah.
group.
I think that's would be a wise way
Okay.
to run it. Be the official advisor
And
for that
we
working
can talk
group.
with Robbie Derrick, that comes under their community development, under the Lexington County Council,
Okay.
and Robbie's the one that we work directly with on
Okay.
that. So that's a good thought. Okay.
Ms. Mood, I have a question.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do that bus still runs over there by Lexington Hospital, over there where they move a lot of those doctor's offices from Columbia over there? And they kind of like merged a lot of the doctor's offices from over here at Baptist Hospital. I know because my doctors went over there.
Yeah, there's
And
still
they're
a route
over
that
there.
goes to Lexington Medical Center
It goes on the hospital grounds.
on the hospital grounds, right?
Oh, thank you, Jesus, because my doctor's over there. Ooh, thank you.
Okay, but I really just wanted to, and I'm glad that we brought this up because I think it's a lot easier if we know kind of what the right hand and the left hand do. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Then we just have one other agenda item, and that's the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second, by acclamation, no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mood. All right, bye-bye.